When most people think about Bitcoin, they treat it like a stock or just another investment in their portfolio. And I think this way to view and value Bitcoin is completely wrong. So in today's video, I want to show you the right way to value Bitcoin, and I want to show you why it's so different from any other traditional financial asset that we have. It can be difficult to tell the difference between Bitcoin, stocks, bonds, ETFs, or mutual funds in a world where financial titans like BlackRock and Fidelity allow you to buy Bitcoin with a click of a button in your brokerage account. It's featured daily on CNBC alongside stocks like Tesla, Amazon, Google, and Apple. It's now being recommended as a portfolio allocation, and like stocks, most people want a piece of Bitcoin so they can make some money. When you buy stock, you're buying a piece of ownership in a company, and you can value it by looking at what product or service they sell, how much profit they're making, and where the company's headed in the future. When you buy a bond, bonds are valued by how willing the borrower is to repay and the interest rate they're willing to offer. Real estate is valued based off of the utility, the location, and the cash flow. But Bitcoin doesn't have earnings, profit, or cash flow. It doesn't send out dividends, so when most people hear this, they just assume that it's worthless. This is a critical error that most people make when trying to value Bitcoin. They start asking themselves the question, what am I actually buying? All right, so when you buy Bitcoin, you're getting a piece of the total supply of 21 million coins on an open distributed monetary network. Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a set of rules that allows anyone to send value anywhere in the world without permission from corporations, banks, or governments. So you're not investing in future profits, you're actually owning a piece of the network itself. This is a monetary system that runs on software. And if you're new to Bitcoin, this probably sounds really abstract and like gibberish. So let me break it down by comparing it to something that you're probably familiar with in the internet. Now, you probably use the internet every single day doing things like streaming, email, messaging, but what you might not realize is that it runs on something called a protocol. This is a standard shared set of rules called TCP/IP, and it's the most popular communications protocol in the world. A protocol is just a shared language for computers. It's a software rulebook that allows different systems to talk to each other, regardless of who built them or where they're located. You can think about it like sending mail. So IP stands for Internet Protocol. It's like the address system. It makes sure your data knows where to go. The TCP part stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and it's like the delivery driver. It breaks the message into small pieces, makes sure they arrive, and then puts them back together in the right order. TCP/IP was invented in the 1970s by Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn. Their goal was to create a way for networks all over the world to connect regardless of hardware, geography, or how they were built. So today, the routers you have in your house, your phone, your laptop, Netflix, YouTube, and Google all use TCP/IP to communicate to each other. It started as a government project in the 70s, and then it spread to universities in the 80s and went mainstream in the 90s. It's the invisible layer underneath the internet that powers basically everything that you do online. Just like TCP/IP became the foundation for how we move information online, Bitcoin is becoming the protocol and the foundation for how we move value. Bitcoin runs on a shared set of software rules that allow people all over the world to send value back and forth to each other. These rules include things like the 21 million coin supply cap, the supply issuance that gets cut in half every 4 years, transaction validation, and how wallets communicate to each other. All of these things are in place so that people all over the world can connect to the network and speak the same monetary language. Bitcoin is open and accessible to anyone, whether you're using a phone wallet in Africa, mining in Texas, or running a node in Europe. You're all following the same protocol. Everyone opts into the same rule set, and changing those rules requires convincing the entire network to upgrade. With the internet, you use a router to get online. With Bitcoin, you use something called a node. This is basically a fancy way of saying a computer that's running Bitcoin software, and it allows you to download the entire history of all of the transactions on the network. And this keeps the network decentralized and honest. It allows you to send and receive transactions and verify that everyone that's sending you money is following the same set of rules. So now the question becomes, how do you even go about valuing a protocol like this? Let me start with the question, if you could hop in a time machine and go back to 1970 when the internet was created and buy a small piece of all the future value created on it, would you do it? In its early days, from the 1970s to the 1990s, the internet was mostly used by researchers and tech nerds who actually understood what it was capable of. It wasn't until the 1990s, and especially after the iPhone launched in 2007, 2007 that the internet began reshaping the world at scale. Since then, the internet has created $30 to $50 trillion of global value. If you add in the market caps of internet giants to that, the number gets to $60 to $80 trillion. And with 5 billion people now using the internet almost on a daily basis, it's estimated that $5 to $7 trillion of productivity is added to the global economy every single year. Why did this happen? This happened because the internet made information nearly free and instantly accessible. It solved friction and saved people time and created opportunities that didn't exist before. The internet became valuable because it solved real problems, and this mostly boils down to saving people time. Examples of this are Google Maps on your phone replacing maps and physical directions. Text and email replaced letters and phone calls. Online banking replaced trips to the bank, and e-commerce replaced malls and shopping trips. After 50 years of the internet, it's undeniable the amount of value that it's created. And it's been 16 years since Bitcoin was created, yet a lot of people still think that it's worthless. So let's fix that by helping you understand how to think about Bitcoin's value the right way. Bitcoin is different from TCP/IP in one big way. TCP/IP is a protocol for data transfer, and Bitcoin is a protocol for value transfer, meaning that unlike the internet, Bitcoin has a built-in digital token that allows you to purchase a piece of the protocol. So you're not buying a piece of a company that's building on top of the protocol like we saw during the dot-com boom and the internet. With Bitcoin, you're actually buying a piece of the underlying protocol. So similar to the internet, adoption is going to be the key metric that we look at when trying to figure out where we're at today and if Bitcoin is still a good investment long term. There's 3 main network metrics that we can look at to measure where Bitcoin's at when it comes to adoption. The hash rate measures the total computing power securing the network. So a rising hash rate here means that more miners believe Bitcoin is worth protecting and that the network is becoming stronger and more secure. Next, there's nodes. So the more people that we have running nodes and using them to send, receive, and verify transactions shows that a growing number of people deeply understand Bitcoin and want to participate in the network. Lastly, there's transaction volume. So this shows how often Bitcoin is being used to send and receive value. Steady or growing transaction volume shows increasing real-world usage and trust in the protocol. And all 3 of these metrics point to one thing, which is increased adoption over time. But let's talk about the one obvious metric that we can use to track adoption. The price. Price is by far the easiest metric to track. It tells us what the market thinks and values Bitcoin at today. As of 2025, Bitcoin's market cap sits just over 2 trillion. In comparison, total global assets, including real estate, stocks, bonds, fiat currency, and commodities, are estimated around $900 trillion. That means Bitcoin is still just a tiny fraction of global capital. So the real question becomes, what percentage of the world's wealth will eventually flow into Bitcoin? Estimates range anywhere from 10% to 40%, depending on how superior you believe Bitcoin is as a store of value and payment network. If we use Michael Saylor's model, it forecasts a range between 2% and 22% of global assets by 2045. This would put Bitcoin's price anywhere between 3 million and 49 million per coin in the most bullish scenarios. So far, Bitcoin has outperformed every other asset class in the world since its inception. And I don't think this is going to slow down anytime soon. Now, why is this? It's because Bitcoin is a better store of value than things like stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, art, or anything else. And it's a better store of value because of the rules that are embedded in the protocol. At its core, Bitcoin solves a simple but universal problem: time theft through currency debasement. And I think most of the value that Bitcoin creates will be due to helping people protect the time that they've traded for money by holding on to that value over time. While the internet saves you time by speeding up your access to information and communication, Bitcoin saves you time by giving you a money that doesn't lose purchasing power. Better money means more freedom and more time to spend doing what you want to do, and less time working for a currency that loses value. And it does this through a base layer protocol that can't be manipulated or stopped. And this is what makes Bitcoin as a protocol so powerful. But how can we be sure that Bitcoin can't be stopped? This is where something called network effects come into play. A network effect happens when a system or product becomes more valuable the more people that use it. A simple example of this is the telephone. One telephone is basically useless because you can't call anybody else. And each phone that gets added to the network makes it more and more valuable because you can call more people. And this also makes it more difficult for other outside phone networks to compete because you couldn't talk to existing ones. And we see these network effects everywhere in things like social networks like Facebook or Instagram, ride-sharing platforms like Uber, and marketplaces like Amazon. As more users and developers adopted the internet protocol, each new connection made it more valuable and harder to replace. So even if competing protocols wanted to try to compete, they couldn't because they couldn't communicate with the existing internet protocol. TCP/IP won because it was open, free, and worked on any device, not just an Apple or Microsoft product. Once everyone started using it, the protocol was established as the only protocol for the internet. And from there, new layers started building on top. We had HTTP for websites, DNS for domain names, SMTP for email, VoIP for calls, and web browsers, email clients, cloud storage, all building on top of the same foundation. Each new layer that was built on top of TCP/IP made the entire internet more valuable and more entrenched and harder to replace. And now Bitcoin is following that same path. It has the strongest network effect of any digital money because it's the most open, decentralized, and adopted out of all of them. And just like the internet, Bitcoin now has higher layers getting built on top of it. We have things like the Lightning Network for faster payments, mining operations, node infrastructure, and wallet software. And if Bitcoin's network effect is so strong at this point that no other monetary protocol can come along and replace it, that means that it will become the foundation for how we exchange value in the future, just like how TCP/IP became the foundation for how we exchange information. TCP/IP disrupted communication, and Bitcoin is already starting to disrupt finance. And if it's too entrenched to be disrupted, then you need to start thinking about Bitcoin's risk in your portfolio in a different way. Bitcoin is often framed like a speculative gamble, and you'll hear people say something like, don't invest more money than you can afford to lose. But in reality, Bitcoin is built to be extremely resilient and robust through all kinds of market volatility, competing cryptocurrencies, government bans, and regulation. It's not a fragile tech startup, it's a protocol that goes one layer deeper than companies that is meant to be built on top of. With a better understanding of how Bitcoin's protocol works, when we start to compare Bitcoin to some of these traditional financial assets, I start to think that some of these risks don't exist with Bitcoin that do with other assets. Stocks have risks like CEOs making bad decisions, product failure, regulatory shifts, market cycles, and inflated valuations with no earnings to back them up. Bonds also come with risks. There's default risk, inflation, and interest rate volatility. Then we have real estate. There's maintenance costs, taxes, zoning laws, tenant risk, and illiquidity. Bitcoin has no CEO, no quarterly reports, no board, and no central point of failure. It just runs on the software by itself automatically. Bitcoin isn't without risk. It's still a relatively small asset, and we're going to need more people to understand and believe in the technology for future growth. But I don't think it's fair to frame Bitcoin as a risky or a speculative gamble. It's still very early for Bitcoin, and I think making the shift from seeing it like a traditional asset like a stock in your portfolio to something like TCP/IP in the internet is crucial. This will help you accurately assess the risk, but to really believe that, you have to zoom out and understand where all of this is heading. Bitcoin isn't just another investment. We're at the very beginning stages of a complete transformation of how the entire world stores and transfers value. The monetary foundation of the digital age. Just like the internet reshaped communication, entertainment, and commerce, Bitcoin is reshaping money. It's on track to become the base layer of a new global financial system, one that's open, neutral, borderless, and built for 8 billion people. Everything will be divided by 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be more than that. And while the dollar loses value over time, Bitcoin gets stronger as adoption grows. It's engineered to protect your time, your energy, and your future. Just like the internet made newspapers, taxis, and the fax machine obsolete, Bitcoin is here to replace the Federal Reserve, the banking system, and fiat currency as we know it. So the next time you hear someone say that Bitcoin doesn't have any cash flow or profits, you'll know the answer. You'll know that owning Bitcoin is owning a piece of the protocol and a piece of a new world. My name is Austin. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.